Are world leaders doing enough to stop the war in Yemen? The United Nations condemns the killing of wedding party guests in an airstrike by the Saudi-led coalition. The Saudis are promising to investigate. What about other airstrikes which have killed women and children and the second in command of Houthi rebels? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jane Dutton. 4 years of war in Yemen show no sign of relenting, especially from the air. Saudi-led coalition airstrikes have killed at least 45 people in the past week, including wedding party guests, women and children. As in previous attacks, which have killed a large number of civilians, the Saudis have promised to investigate. And the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned the killings, which have also included the Houthis' second in command. Both the Houthis and coalition leaders are being urged to negotiate peace. Mike Hanna has more from UN headquarters in New York.
The wedding hall, which was to have been the scene of joyous celebration, was turned into a death trap. This video, which Al Jazeera cannot independently verify, shows the aftermath of the airstrikes believed to have been carried out by the Saudi-led coalition. Local officials said the first missile detonated in the men's section of the wedding party. Moments later, a second one hit the side on which the females were gathered. This footage released by the Houthi rebels shows the horrific aftermath. A young boy screaming and crying next to what appears to be the lifeless body of his father. Dozens of people were treated in the nearby hospital. They have no mercy towards children. They've been killed without any remorse, says this man. A spokesman for the Saudi-led coalition says it will carry out a full investigation. The UN has said that of the estimated 10,000 Yemenis that have so far lost their lives in the conflict, some 60% have been killed in airstrikes. There's been no formal response from the Security Council as yet. Its members have just returned from a weekend retreat in Sweden. But the Office of the Secretary-General has issued a statement on his behalf condemning the attack. It reads, in part, the Secretary-General reminds all parties of their obligations under international humanitarian law concerning the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure during armed conflicts. He calls for a prompt, effective, and transparent investigation. And during the day, details emerged of another Saudi-led airstrike. Houthi political council head Salah al-Samad was killed in an apparent missile attack last Thursday.
With full sorrow and sadness, I mourn to our Yemeni people the dear martyr President Saleh al-Samad, who was killed on the 19th of April with 6 of his companions. He was targeted in Hodeidah province on his way back from a meeting with local leaders by 3 airstrikes launched by the warplanes of the US-Saudi aggression.
Saleh al-Samad is the most senior Houthi leader to have been killed since the Western-backed Saudi-led coalition intervened in Yemen just over 3 years ago. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, United Nations.
As the war in Yemen enters its 4th year, the UN says it's become the world's worst humanitarian crisis. 22 million Yemenis, that's 3/4 of the population, are in dire need of humanitarian aid or protection. Nearly 18 million don't have enough to eat. 16 million lack access to basic health care. And more than 10,000 have been killed, with large numbers injured, mainly by indiscriminate armed action by all parties in the war. Well, let's bring in our guests. On set is Noha Aboueldahab, a visiting fellow at the Brookings Doha Center. From Sana'a, Hussain AL Bukhaiti, a pro-Houthi journalist. And joining us by Skype from Washington, D.C. is Nabeel Khoury, a former U.S. diplomat and Deputy Chief of Mission in Yemen for the State Department. A very warm welcome to all 3 of you. Hussain AL Bukhaiti, targeting a wedding, those gruesome pictures that we've just seen. 3 deadly strikes in 3 days, a real uptake on military action here. What do you think is going on?
It seems, I mean, from the beginning of this war, the Saudi started its strikes and attack on Yemen on 26th of March 2015 by destroying an entire neighborhood north of Sana'a. And the same last 3 days, they have targeted a wedding. They have targeted a petrol station, killing 13 civilians in the petrol station. And it seems to be that the Saudi Arabia will continue to target civilians' infrastructure, target schools, wedding halls, funeral halls. They have been doing that from the beginning. This is, I think, the 10th wedding that has been targeted during this war. Hundreds of people has been killed just in weddings, halls or wedding gathering. This is the Saudi. They don't care because they think with their money they can buy the United Nations. And we remember that they have actually blackmailed the United Nations to take their name from the blacklist for killing children. And this is one of the most shameful steps that the United Nations has done. And the Saudi, using the British and using the American, they have blocked a draft from the Dutch government to do an international investigation, independent investigation into Yemen, into all crimes, either committed by the Saudi-led coalition or what claims is committed by the Houthi. But it was blocked by the United Kingdom. They show you that those three countries, they know there are crimes committed by the Saudi, but because all the weapons that the Saudi used is provided by the United Kingdom and provided by the United States, so they don't want any investigation to be done because they will be held responsible for providing the Saudi with GPS location, with coordinate, and we know that the Saudi will not be able
Hussain, we're going to get back to that point because it is an important
only
point.
With the satellite.
Forgive me, I want to just deal with these strikes initially in this increase in strikes. It seems, Nabeel Khoury, that we are seeing an escalation, aren't we?
Yes, in and of itself, the death of one man, even though he was the head of the political council of the Houthis, does not change very much on the ground. But in the bigger picture, this is an escalatory move. Whether they intended to kill him or not, they have been going after civilians. They have also been going after the Houthi leadership wherever they find them or think they have found them. For me, this indicates that the Arab Saudi-led coalition is making a renewed push to win this war. They are making it in and around Hodeidah itself, where Samad was killed. They are also making it in the north. And for that effort, they have recruited more mercenary forces. They don't have any of their own forces on the ground, but they have rented out people from Sudan, from Pakistan, from other places in Africa. So they are clearly making a push, and this is where the escalatory thing is. Instead of putting peace forward, they are still putting the military solution forward. I'm afraid the murder of this man, the killing of this man, is also going to cause the Houthis to escalate from their end because they have already promised revenge of some sort. This is very unfortunate. I think both sides owe the Yemeni people a new peace initiative instead of new escalatory military moves.
All right, Noha Aboueldahab, what do you make of what we've seen over the last 3 days, the hits on the weddings, the innocent people? I mean, this escalation in strikes, do you think it is a case of ending this war, taking out the Houthis at whatever cost?
Well, certainly there's been an escalation over the last 3 days. But there's also been an escalation on both sides, whether it's, you know, the Houthis firing their ballistic missiles into Riyadh and so on. On the other hand, it's more of the same. Weddings, funerals, hospitals, schools have been bombed repeatedly in the past. And Saudi Arabia's reaction has been similar in the sense that it said, you know, it will investigate. So, you know, despite the fact that...
And that doesn't make a difference, doesn't it, investigate? If it is your own crime, investigate.
Well, exactly. It's investigating its own actions. And in the past, these investigations have been questionable in terms of process and transparency, and they've tended to deflect responsibility onto their Yemeni military allies inside Yemen. I think that, you know, the message here from the last 3 days is despite the fact that, there's this rhetoric about the peace process and the importance of the peace process in engaging the Hadi government and the UN, both parties seem to think that, a military solution is the only solution to this conflict.
Hussain, taking out Saleh al-Samad, the Houthi second in command, what sort of impact is it going to have on the Houthis? Will this lead them to the negotiating table? Will it lead to an increase in fighting? And where does it leave the Houthis and their attacks on Saudi Arabia?
The only impact it has on the Houthi and most of Yemen is that something sad to hear that the head of the political council was killed, but it wouldn't have any effect on the political issue like in Sana'a, because within 3 days of his killing, the Houthi has appointed a new person, which is Mr. Mahdi al-Mashat, and this guy, we can consider him as one of the hard liners, so he will have more impact on the Saudi, and because we are in a war, so it's expected that some of the Houthi leaders or the Yemeni army commanders will be killed before, like they have killed one of the senior commander in the front line when he was in south of Yemen, and it hasn't had any impact. But I think this will make the Houthi stronger, because by the killing of one of their top leader, there will be more people going to the front line, and I think there is I can't see any sight for peace from this point, because now the Houthi, they can actually escalate the way they need it and the way they think it will be the good response to the Saudi, and I don't think that anyone can blame them for any escalation in the future, because in the last 3 days more than 50 people, civilians, were killed, and they killed the senior Houthi leader. So I think now the Houthi are preparing a major attack, a major ballistic missile strike, and I'm sure that in the coming few days or weeks we will see new ballistic missile come into service. They will, of course, they will be targeting now. They will focus. We have seen in the last few weeks they targeted on Aramco company. It seems to be that the Houthis now have realized that the oil is the backbone of the Saudi-led coalition war in Yemen. The oil is where the money come from, that they buy weapons from the United Kingdom and the United States. And I think this will be the major and the most important target for the Houthi missile unit, including port and airports.
Okay, Nabeel, so there's that threat. We've seen an increase in attacks coming from the Houthis as well. We clearly are in a very dangerous situation. Is there anything out there that's going to stop this from exacerbating?
Well, the only thing that can stop it is an outside force such as the United States, leaning on the Saudis in particular, but both sides to.
But the United States is working alongside the Saudis. They're providing arms, they're providing information, they're making a lot of money out of this war.
Exactly. I think, especially under this administration, the emphasis is on the economic, commercial side of the relationship with Saudi Arabia. And the U.S. has, in fact, been empowering the Saudis in their attacks. The only reaction we've seen so far from the U.S. is what we've been seeing for the past year, which is blaming Iran. And this really insults the intelligence of anybody listening to Nikki Haley at the United Nations. Iran does not have a single soldier in Yemen. And Iran does lend some assistance to the Houthis, but it's not anywhere near as significant as what the Saudis and the Arab.
There's a lot of talk about how much assistance they are providing when it comes to the missiles, for example.
Yes. Well, they can smuggle in a small number of missiles in parts, which then have to be put back together inside Yemen. The Houthis also have some advisors from Lebanese Hezbollah, and some of these people are technical experts. So they can help in developing some of the older weapons. Many of the rockets that have been fired at Saudi Arabia are older generation Soviet-era rockets. But those can be modified. The range can be extended. And that's where some Iranian and Hezbollah expertise comes in. But in general, this is still minor compared to the firepower that has been directed at the Houthis and at Yemen as a whole. So in the end, to blame Iran for what's going on is really missing the point. This war is between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia. So you might as well put these two together and get them to end the war and stop trying to blame Iran for it.
Noha, I should imagine, if we can go back to the money issue, that there are many parties interested in keeping this war going. I mean, you've got members of the Houthis who've become very wealthy over this war. You've got the UK providing arms, the US there that we've been talking about, the UAE stepping in and playing its game there. I mean, how do you stop that sort of action? How do you take away that incentive?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lucrative war business. And as you rightly stated, all of the multiple parties in this conflict, and we mustn't forget that it's not a two-sided conflict. There are many actors at play here. Whether it is the southern leaders in Yemen and the southern secessionist movement, which has gained a lot of ground over the last 3.5 years of this war, the UAE, the Saudi-led coalition, alongside them, alongside the South, but also and of course the Houthis and the Saudi-led coalition, but also there's the Hadi government, and while there's sort of renewed but cautious optimism with the new UN Special Envoy, Martin Griffiths, I think as a viable mediator in this conflict, I think that, from what I see, there's a lot of frustration among Yemenis with this fixation on the Hadi government as this so-called internationally recognized government. The legitimacy of the Hadi government is quite weak, in fact, among Yemenis, and so there's an argument that the approach towards the peace process needs to pay more attention to the southern issue, pay more attention to those areas of Yemen that are relatively stable, and also pay attention to the fact that it's not a homogenous country. Different actors operate or have different levels of power in different parts of the country. And this is why it is absolutely crucial that the Yemenis who have left Yemen, especially in the last 3.5 years, many of them are professionals. They're lawyers, they're activists, they're scholars, intellectuals, they're former politicians. They must be engaged to properly understand the complexities of this country and how to address the various geographical areas.
Nabeel, that's key, isn't it? That all players are involved, that the Houthis are brought to the table. Isn't the existing resolution at the UN outdated now, considering how much control the Houthis do have? Why should the Houthis give up arms if they're in this position of control, including in Sana'a? Shouldn't that change for a start?
Absolutely. I think there is a need for a new UN Security Council resolution. The problem is that resolutions coming out of the Security Council have been one-sided and are likely to continue to be one-sided. The US will probably veto anything that Saudis don't like. But Martin Griffiths has the right idea, which is to approach all the warring parties. Everybody needs to be taken into consideration. But in the end of the day, you have the power blocks, the main power blocks, meaning Saudi Arabia, the Houthis, as an outside power, the United States. If these three powers are not behind him, don't support his efforts, then they will be futile. Absolutely, he needs to talk to everybody and know what their interests are, what will cause them to put down their weapons. But you have to go to the
But it looks like they're, at the moment, choosing the military solution, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, I think definitely from the Saudi point of view, you have MBS, who is a very ambitious young man who has already asserted himself as the de facto ruler in Saudi Arabia, but he also wants to assert himself as the regional power center, as the regional leader. And unfortunately, he is choosing to do that with military means. One would think that going on the 4th year now of this war, somebody should say, hey, maybe we should try a different tack here. From the Houthi perspective, I think by now they certainly know that their original dream of controlling all of Yemen has foundered, and that there is no way they can rule the whole country. They have to be realistic, they have to be pragmatic and accept something less than that, where they have a role, where their region is respected, where the rights are respected. But beyond that, I think they should be suing for peace. And whereas I place the initiative should be in Saudi hands, I also would advise the Houthis, instead of escalating at this point, to actually put forward a peace plan of their own.
Okay, let's put that to Hussain. I mean, what will it take to push the Houthis to the table now? Look how many of your own people are dying here and there's no end in sight. Would it work for you if Hadi's position, his role was lessened? If you were given more power, if you became more of a political player, taken more seriously?
No, I think we shouldn't even mention Hadi, because the so-called Hadi legitimacy does not exist only in a room inside a hotel in Riyadh. Hadi does not exist anywhere else, only in that room.
Okay, so let's talk about the new reality then.
And on the other hand, to ask to ask the Ansarullah, the Houthi, to come to the negotiation table. They have been to the negotiation table. They have accepted the 2216, but this 2216 was just only not to allow weapons, as they say, to come to the Houthi. But on the other hand, we've seen weapons flowing into Yemen towards all militia that fighting with the Saudi-led coalition, including Al-Qaeda. And let's remind you that the U.S. Treasury list has put 4 people on their terrorist list, and one of them is the governor of Al-Bayda, and the other one is the leader of the Saudi-led coalition in Marib, and one in Al-Jawf, and one live with Hadi in Riyadh. He's the advisor. And all these 4 work with Hadi.
I want to know what the Houthis can do now to push the peace process. I'm saying, we know where we are now. What's it going to take?
No, I don't think we should ask the Houthi to push the peace process.
Well,
because
clearly it's an important player. Everybody has got to
eliminate them.
Do their bit.
No, but the first one who need to put or to go to peace or to put an effort is the Saudi, the one who started the war in Yemen, and they can do it with one thing: to open Sana'a airport, to lift the blockade on Hodeidah port, and to only allow food and medicine and fuel to come into Yemen. If they do that, then the Houthi will go fully to the negotiation table, and they will put all the effort to reach peace. And for you to mention that there are many people from the Houthi or people fighting,
let me just bring Noha in here, and let's remember that the Houthis did take over
people of them killed,
Sana'a, which
they
exacerbated the war there. But I mean, you can hear the different positions, and it seems that everybody seems reluctant to move forward. I mean, what's the next step?
Right. So it's been at this stalemate for a very, very long time now. You know, we mustn't forget, sure, of course, a significant number of casualties are caused by the sort of indiscriminate attacks by the Saudi-led coalition. The Houthis are also responsible for, you know, arbitrary detention, killings, torture, forced disappearances, the abduction of journalists, systematically, and so on. I think that, you know, and in terms of the U.S. as an actor, I can't see the U.S. as a viable actor so long as the current situation persists, so long as it continues to refuel Saudi jets in midair to continue bombing Yemen. I just can't see the U.S. playing a peace process role here. Having said that, we should remember that the current sort of crisis in Yemen, or the multiple crises in Yemen that are you know at their peak at the moment, are go back to the flaws of the National Dialogue Conference process in Yemen in 2013 and 2014. The representation of the various various political parties in Yemen was superficial, and many, whether it was the Southerners, whether it was the Houthis, whether it was Yemeni women or the youth. And so where we are today is in part because of the failure of this National Dialogue Conference process.
Noha Aboueldahab, thank you very much. Thanks also to my other guests, Hussain AL Bukhaiti and Nabeel Khoury. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Jane Dutton, and the rest of the team, goodbye for now.